Welcome back. You're watching World News, and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine and Russia, Kellogg, arrived in Kyiv on Wednesday morning for a three-day visit. While in Ukraine, Kellogg will meet with top state officials to discuss the most pressing issues. TVP World correspondent Oz Kataji has more.
U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine and Russia, Kellogg, has arrived in Kyiv this morning for talks with the Ukrainian government as the U.S. steps up its campaign to try and bring an end to the war in Ukraine. Now, Kellogg's visit comes amid comments released by Donald Trump blaming the Ukrainian government for the war beginning, falsely claiming that Zelensky has a 4% approval rating and adopting many of Russia's arguments on Ukraine wholesale. So this is obviously going to be very alarming for the Ukrainians. It's interesting to see what's going to be said to Kellogg in these meetings. Now, the Americans are obviously expecting the Ukrainians to have some sort of concessions to make towards Russia to end the war, but with no clarity on what those concessions are and no clarity on what concessions they expect the Russians to make to end the war. So they're in a very difficult position, the Ukrainians, now with this change in policy in the White House, and they are reacting to events rather than being able to manage them in their own way. So we will bring you more about what happens in these meetings on TVP World throughout the rest of the day. But for now, Ukraine looks like they're in a very difficult position with Donald Trump's administration adopting some quite pro-Russian arguments on the war in Ukraine. It's Oz Kataji reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
It's very clear to us the importance of sovereignty of this nation, said U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine and Russia Kellogg upon his arrival in Kyiv. The Washington official will stay in Ukraine for 3 days.
It's good to be back in Kyiv again. I've had some wonderful talks with President Zelensky, his staff, and military commanders. It's kind of nice that I'm here just a few days before the third anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Give us a chance to have some good, substantial talks. We had a chance to see President Zelensky and his team down in Munich. So I think this is going to be a continuation. Looking forward to doing it. And appreciate you all being out here. We understand the need for security guarantees. It's very clear to us the importance of sovereignty of this nation, the independence of this nation as well. And part of my mission is to sit and listen and say, okay, what are your concerns? Well, yes, we can go back to the United States, talk to President Trump, and with Secretary Rubio and the rest of the team, and just ensure that we get this one right.
EU ambassadors greenlit a proposal this morning to slap Russia with another round of sanctions. The package, which includes the formal endorsement of EU foreign ministers, includes a ban on Russian aluminium imports, as well as a slate of other hard-hitting measures. EU correspondent Angela Skujins has this latest from Brussels.
The EU is one step closer to hitting Russia with another round of sanctions. Ambassadors met in Brussels this morning and greenlit a proposal to hit the Kremlin for its third-year invasion of Ukraine. The sanctions package includes targeting at least 73 new vessels suspected of being involved in Russia's shadow fleet. These are crude oil tankers suspected of circumventing the EU's strict oil rules. The measures also include revoking at least 8 broadcast licenses for media operations in the Russian Union. But most interestingly is a ban of Russian imported aluminium. This was previously floated, but member states never got it over the line due to their fears that it could hurt the European economy. But this measure being carried today really shows that the EU is serious at hitting Russia hard for that ongoing invasion. But these measures need the formal approval of foreign ministers who will meet on Monday. That meeting is expected to time with the third-year anniversary of Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. The College of Commissioners will also travel to Ukraine next week to mark that somber anniversary. But The sanctions package are backdropped by the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio warning that the EU needs to ease up on the sanctions if a ceasefire deal is meant to be followed through between Russia and Ukraine. So we'll wait and see what comes out of Washington following these announcements today. Angela Scugins from Brussels for TVP World.
We are committed to keep up the pressure on the Kremlin, wrote European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen on X, following the unveiling of the 16th package of sanctions by the European Union. The deal among ambassadors was deliberately timed to arrive in the lead-up to the invasion's third anniversary, with the College of Commissioners set to mark with a joint visit to Kyiv.
I welcome the agreement on our 16th package of sanctions. The EU is clamping down even harder on circumvention by targeting more vessels in Putin's shadow fleet and imposing new import and export bans. We are committed to keep up the pressure on the Kremlin.
France is preparing to host another meeting on Ukraine on Wednesday. The guest list includes officials from countries that did not attend the emergency gathering convened in response to the Munich Security Conference.
Reports indicate that the meeting will include leaders from Norway, Canada, the 3 Baltic states, the Czech Republic, Greece, Finland, Romania, Sweden, and Belgium. Yesterday's emergency meeting, attended by Poland and other major European players regarding Ukraine, followed the disappointing stance of the U.S. government on ending the war. These French efforts are part of a broader European response to potential peace talks between Russia and the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, which neither Europe nor Ukraine were invited to participate in.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has held consultations with his European colleagues after meeting with the Kremlin's chief diplomat Sergei Lavrov in Saudi Arabia. In a call with foreign ministers from France, Germany, Italy and the UK, as well as EU officials, Rubio shared details on the progress of the negotiations.
According to the American State Department, officials participating in the call agreed to maintain close coordination in resolving the war in Ukraine. At the same time, EU leaders expressed their concern over the Donald Trump administration's approach to ending the conflict. EU countries were not involved in the negotiations in Riyadh, during which Rubio agreed to restore respective diplomatic missions in Washington and Moscow and appoint a team to negotiate an end to Russia's war in Ukraine.
As the news of the U.S.-Russian talks from Riyadh settle in, Politico reveals that Europe has taken action. A new €6 billion defense package is set to be sent to Kyiv. The package is expected to include 1.5 million artillery shells, air defense systems, and other military equipment. Reports from 3 different EU sources suggest the package could be unveiled ahead of the European Commissioner's visit to Kyiv on February 24th. 2 of the diplomats quoted suggested the €6 billion figure is just a starting point, with contributions potentially exceeding 10 billion as countries assess what they can provide. EU foreign ministers will review the package during a Brussels meeting next week. The Polish Minister of Defense has said that no country bordering Russia should send troops to Ukraine, as it could possibly increase tensions with Moscow. Speaking to Polish broadcaster Polsat, Minister Kosiniak-Kamysz has reaffirmed Polish Prime Minister Tusk's position that Warsaw will not send peacekeeping troops to Ukraine. Warsaw is certainly not sending and will not be sending troops to Ukraine, said Polish Defense Chief Kosiniak-Kamysz in a televised interview. The official added that Poland already must secure NATO's eastern flank, therefore will not be capable of sending any peacekeeping missions to Ukraine. At the same time, he stressed that Poland is dealing with constant risk of hybrid attacks planned in Moscow and Minsk. Overnight, Russia launched an airstrike on a residential district in Odessa in the south of Ukraine. The attack caused power, water, and gas cuts to 27 schools and kindergartens and some 500 apartment buildings. At the same time, several Russian drone waves attacked Kyiv, with Ukraine retaliating by targeting an oil refinery in Russia's Samara region.
According to the mayor of Odessa, the attack on the city left hospitals, schools and other civilian infrastructure in a difficult situation. So far, there have been no reports of fatalities in the aftermath, but 4 people were wounded. Overall, 250,000 people have been left without power and heating. Multiple Russian drones also attacked the Ukrainian capital, prompting the residents to head towards air raid shelters. Also overnight, Ukrainian drones attacked the Syrizan oil refinery in Russia's Samara region. Residents reported 2 explosions and a fire burning at the facility. According to preliminary data shared by the Russian authorities, the attack caused no casualties or injuries, but the extent of the damage remains unknown.
In a post on social media, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Russia is ruled by pathological liars, claiming they do not target Ukraine's energy sector. Zelensky referred to the latest Russian attack on Ukraine, which targeted energy infrastructure in Ukraine's Odessa region.
Just yesterday, after the notorious meeting in Riyadh, it became clear that Russian representatives were once again lying, claiming they do not target Ukraine's energy sector. Yet almost simultaneously, they launched another attack with drones striking electrical transformers, and this during winter. It was -6 degrees Celsius at night. We must never forget that Russia is ruled by pathological liars. They cannot be trusted and must be pressured for the sake of peace.
Pope Francis has been diagnosed with bilateral pneumonia. According to a statement from the Vatican, his situation remains complex. The 88-year-old pontiff has been hospitalized since last week. He's receiving treatment for polymicrobial infections, which are both acute and chronic illnesses. All his public events will be canceled until Saturday, as doctors had prescribed complete rest for the Pope. The pontiff has had a record of lung-related diseases throughout his life. And so this marks the end of our news broadcast, but please do stay tuned back on TVP World here in just a moment with more news and features.